Hello, everyone. Onegaishimasu. You know, I realized the other day that daylight saving time had just changed in Europe, and so I just want to mention how much I appreciate the people that have joined us from Europe because it's now 3:57 in the morning. 3:57. It's almost 4 o'clock. So, I mean, we should all give them a big hand, okay? Because this is dedication. Well, it's fortitude, isn't it? So I really appreciate you folks attending. Okay, so I'll read first something for you. This is Shokushu number 11 from Koichi Sensei. It's called The Essence of Ki. We begin with the number 1 in counting all things. It is impossible that this 1, even reduced to infinitely small particles of itself, can ever become 0. Because just as something cannot come from nothing, 1 can never arise from 0. Universal Ki is the infinite gathering of infinitely small particles. This universal Ki condensed becomes an individual, which further condensed becomes the 1 point in the lower abdomen, which in turn infinitely condensed never becomes 0. And in this way, we are one with the universe. Thus, we realize the essence of Ki. There's a lot there. We have to read this again and again and again and contemplate the meaning of it. And Tohei Sensei's phrase for tonight is, if you are alive, then Ki is extending, right? So we chose to say it this way. I also heard Tohei Sensei many, many times like to say, if you are alive, you are filled with Ki. So I always thought when I first heard him say, if you're alive, you're filled with Ki, oh boy, I thought, all right, that's something to be very proud of. But it just means if you're alive, you're filled with Ki, because this is the Ki of the universe, and not just makes up the parts of this body, but makes up the parts of these glasses, this piece of paper, this glass of water, the ocean and the mountain and the trees and the shrubs and the grasses. Everything is made of what Tohei Sensei calls Ki. You can call it atoms or subatomic particles or whatever you like. But don't get confused, because when we're teaching Ki, particularly Ki principles, particularly to people that are beginners, we kind of make it sound like Ki is something that moves from here to there, like a squirt gun, don't we? So it doesn't mean there's no movement. And it doesn't mean that movement that's there is mystical. Of course, when I shift my attention from one thing to another, there's a movement. When I do something, there's a movement. One time, Tohei Sensei was sitting at his desk, and there was an ink bottle there on his desk. And a student challenged him and said, well, I understand that you can move things with your mind. Is this true? And Tohei Sensei said, of course. Picked up the ink bottle and moved it like that. And said, there you go. You see, on the one hand, we can make it, it's very not mysterious. But on the other hand, if you really read what he's saying, if you really contemplate the universal Ki being everything and everywhere, including what I am made of and you are made of, in fact, what you are, then you are part of everything. And everything is a part of you. So that means we get the notion of extend key like include everything. We could just as well say key is including or key is embracing because we welcome everything as a part of us and us being a part of it. There's nothing in the universe that is different fundamentally than what you are essentially in you. And that's not just matter, folks. I'm not just talking about a physical thing, because the world actually isn't made that way. As we say again and again, if you talk to a physicist, they'll assure you that when you get down to the tiniest subatomic particles, and I don't know what you want to call those, we'll call them key. Anyway, when you get to this infinitely small particles, depending on how you look at them, they're either energy or particle, a wave or particle, energy or matter. So is this made of energy or is it made of matter? Is key energy of the universe or is it the matter of the universe? And what is the difference fundamentally, elementally, basically? The physicists will tell you there's no difference. Those two are the same. But to our logical mind, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. So that's why, at the same time, this is very simple to understand. It's also very mysterious, very difficult to understand, because the way we look at things is through a lens of separation, not a lens of inclusivity, not a lens of unification. We look through our world in our daily life, in the Shoga world with our small mind. We see everything as separate, and most especially ourselves as separate, don't we? So this is a big deal. And I'm really glad we're doing this tonight. Well, because this is my favorite part of Aikido. Okay, I want to do some breathing. Let's do some breathing, and then we'll come back to this. Okay. So the air goes out of us, spreads out, and the air comes in and spreads around. I asked Suzuki Sensei one time when I was a young man, why we have to breathe all the time? What's happening there? Why? He said, "Oh, you got to build your kokyu, you know." He meant kokyu. He means breath power. If you ask him what is kokyu, he'll tell you it's breath power. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't understand. So he said, you cannot live your life completely without breath power. In other words, the recognition of what breath is on a fundamental experiential level gives us the ability to experience and appreciate and be grateful for being alive. That's what Suzuki Sensei calls living life completely. And you know, it's interesting because I was watching, well, um, I was watching Tracy Reasoner's Monday night class, and I believe he was discussing this himself. He mentioned this himself. Somebody was asking about, it was on Keep Breathing this Monday, and someone was asking him about Keep Breathing, and he said, don't think about the little parts. Don't think about the little moving parts of it, about this and about that, and how to do this and how to do that. Just keep one point and be natural and breathe. And then, Tohei Sensei, Shinichi Tohei Sensei had a class Saturday night, and I don't get to see it. It's in Japanese, so I couldn't understand. But always, Sayaka gives me a report because she's watching it. And she said, basically, this is what he taught about. He teaches about the same thing all the time. He's always teaching us the same thing all the time, just like his father was. We have to include everything, like Suzuki Sensei would say, include everything in the dojo. Fill the dojo with your ki. This means include everything. So when someone touches you, what happens? When someone grabs a hold of you, what happens? When somebody attacks you, what happens? We collapse. We collapse. Our whole attention goes to this, wherever they grab. Or maybe they insult you. Your whole attention goes to what did you just say to me? So this is the opposite of breath power. As Suzuki Sensei would say, this is the opposite of breath power. So breath power is including everything. So when you're in the dojo, like Tohei Sensei would always say, when you're doing your techniques, your eyes should be calm and on the horizon. They shouldn't be looking here and there at this and that. Like driving down the street, watch yourself. Notice how you're driving. Are you driving, seeing everything? Or are you? You go in the grocery store, you're looking for shopping. You're shopping for a tomato. You have to look for the tomato, but how do you look? Notice how you look for things. Notice how you use your attention. So, because this as we become more and more complete, see, as we begin to experience our totality, which is unlimited and infinite, as we begin to experience that more and more, that shows up in the way that we do things in our life. The way that we experience things changes. Maybe only a little bit every day, folks, but that little bit adds up and adds up and adds up. Gosh. I printed out here. I don't know what you do when you're getting ready for like a class like this. But when I see that we're going to be discussing if you are alive, ki is extending, then the first thing I think, better check our 5 principles of extending ki class and see what did we cover? What did we discover as we were discussing that? Because, even as I'm maybe I'm leading the discussion in the sense that I'm speaking, right? But it's a discovery for me, just as much as it is for you, just as much. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do, like I said, I do try to prepare myself. So in this case, I went and looked at this. And I'd just like to read to remind us of the 5 principles of extending ki. This was last December we did this discussion. Number 1, a posture in which you do not pay attention to your body. What he means by that is you don't collapse down on any one thing. It's everything together. So you keep one point means go to the center of everything. Extend ki means include everything. So give yourself to everything and let everything be a part of you. Number two, a posture in which centrifugal force is working. So I think I was talking the other night about sometimes people think that what do you call it? Relaxation is the absence of tension. But this is a big mistake. Of course, relaxation exists on its own. It's the presence of relaxation. That is something. It doesn't mean you have to get rid of tension. And in fact, tension is what holds your body together, folks. So don't get too relaxed or you'll fall apart. Okay, tension is very important. Just the right amount of tension, no unnecessary tension. Okay, so a centrifugal force is what creates the centrifugal force and centripetal force, right? The sense of a gravitational pull and the sense of attraction between two bodies and the effect of being thrown away as whatever it is that you're on is moving. So this is centrifugal and centripetal force. And these things create this sense of, or this a physical sense of tension. It's a surface tension that holds everything together. So you don't want to go try to get rid of tension, right? You want to just say, I am relaxed. Number three, a posture with merciful eyes and a kind face. That's this business of looking at the, gazing at the horizon. You know, you don't put on a mask, of course, of some kind of, I don't know what that would be, but it's very phony, right? It feels very fakey. No, it's your steadiness, it's your calmness, it's your acceptance of everything that gives you this sense of gazing at the horizon that Tohei Sensei talks about. Also, number four, a posture which is quiet, same thing. Number five, a posture in which you are positive and accept all things. A posture in which you're positive and accept all things. Everything is acceptable. Think about that. Because everything is key. So whether it's energy, whether it's a force of some sound force from somebody insulting you, coming to you, or the sound force of someone praising you, coming to you, telling you how wonderful you are, or whether it's a physical blow coming to you that you have to join with, that you have to accept before you can ever deal with it. If you have any sense of rejection of any of that, of negativity, of fighting against, we were talking about, no, then you're through. You're through before you begin. So this is why we're practicing Aikido. To have this sense, like I said, of completion, of fullness, of completeness, even though you can never be complete because it's infinite. And all of that, though, is you. And you are all of that. Okay, so Elena Loomis is your moderator this evening. So she will be sending you to your rooms, to your discussion rooms, and starting right now. So I'll see you in 15 minutes. I should say that Tohei Sensei, Shinichi Sensei just said something about, make sure that if we're going to do these Zoom sessions and put them on the internet, make sure you have permission from everyone. So if you don't want to be revealed as you are on the internet, don't ask me a question. Or tell me I want to be cut out of that. I've had somebody say that, actually. Before we proceed any further, I have neglected to have Sayaka Reasoner read the phrase in Japanese, "If you are alive, ki is extending." So with my apologies, please do that, Sayaka, now. Read that in Japanese for us, please.
Sensei, sorry, I think Sayaka had to leave the call.
Oh, please.
Hello, Sensei. Thank you.
Hi, Fincher.
Hello, everyone. So we had several questions in the group that kind of were similar. And it kind of points to maybe an understanding of what a personal key is. One question was, one of our group individuals heard that when you give kyatsu, sometimes it replenishes your ki, and they heard that afterwards you need to spend a little time recovering.
Ah, very interesting. Because Tohei Sensei, oh, you want to finish? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, if I could.
Yeah,
And then another
please.
comparison was, well, when I'm sick, I feel low on ki. And then the other comment was, well, how can we be ever low on ki if we're connected to the universe and we have the infinite ki at our disposal?
Yeah. Okay, well, this is going to come up later because one of his phrases down the line is, the more ki you extend, the more comes in. The Tohei Sensei always laughed when somebody told him, oh, I feel all worn out after I've been giving kyatsu. So he would always say, well, you have too much tension in your body then. This is the problem. There's no such thing as, it's like when I'm loving too much, then I get tired of loving. Does that happen to you? I don't think so. It's when you have the delusion that you are doing something, that kyatsu is giving something of something personal from you to that other person. And when you have that sort of ego issue, you know, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. It sucks it right out of you. So that's the reason why you have that. And so in order to overcome that, then we want to do more. This may sound like I always give this, send this prescription. Please do more sitting. Please do more ki breathing. Because the whole point is this extending ki tonight we're talking about. Ki extension is just including more and more so that your personal task becomes less and less of a burden to you. You know, when in the early days or years ago, when Tohei Sensei would invite me, if Tohei Sensei invite you to his house at night, always you have to wear a suit and tie, coat and tie. And you know that two things are going to happen. You're going to drink sake with him, number one. And number two, he's going to ask you to take on more responsibility. Or in other words, he's going to ask you to extend ki more. Okay? So I remember going there, being on the one hand excited to drink sake and get to talk to Tohei Sensei all evening. That's very nice, you know, because then I get the understanding by watching him and talking to him, listening to him, how he's the same as me. So that gives me a chance, you know. But on the other hand, I always felt nervous because I knew I was going to have to take on some more big job. And, you know, but the delusion was that I was going to do something more. He wasn't really asking me to sacrifice. He was asking me to accept more of the universe. It's, you know, it's so ignorant. It's so ignorant because you think it's so egotistical. it's not you, folks. You know, it's you're everything, and everything is you. That's what I'm trying to get across. Tohei Sensei spent his whole life trying to share this simple message with us. When we love someone, it's because we recognize that we are the same. When we recognize that in our heart, not in our head, it has nothing to do with thinking that or believing that. It's nothing like that. When you recognize in your heart that you fit with this other person, or maybe with an animal, or maybe with a tree, come on, then love springs forth from you. Ki, then we can say ki is extending, and we use, oh, I get what that means, ki is extending. But it's really just accepting. So that whole idea of getting worn out and having to rest for a while is comes from a misunderstanding of Gyatso. Now, I don't know who said that or whose teacher told you that. And I don't want to insult your teacher, or I don't want your teacher to feel like, you know, I'm contradicting him or something. So don't go tell your teacher now, well, Curtis Sensei says you're not correct. Please don't do that. Just take it for today. This is what I learned from Tohei Sensei, and do your best to understand. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, group number 2.
Hello, Sensei, and hello, everybody.
Hello, Alexei.
I'm from group 2 with Alaria and Lilian. And yeah, we discussed and even have a question, but it's also related to the same area about Gyatso, but it's more about Shokushu, about for Gyatso told about this, that if body have no enough ki, you can add some ki to like a empty pump to start to walking, and this a little bit confused maybe. And if you can, but you already commented about this, and
well, yeah, you know, yes, okay. A good way to look at that, to me. I mean, I think the mechanical idea of a pump maybe makes it easy for some people to understand. But, you know, if somebody's feeling down, someone that you care about, what do?
Embraced.
You embrace them. That's Gyatso. That's what you're doing. Or maybe you just put your hand on them, or maybe you don't have that kind of relationship with them. Maybe you just sit with them. Sometimes when I'm with a student in a private session, we just sit there. I just sit with them. And that's all they want. That's enough. They don't need a lecture, you know, and they certainly don't need an embrace. But if it's your grandchild or your family member or someone that's different. So yeah. This is Gyatso. Gyatso is anytime you connect more deeply with another person. And in the case of Gyatso, as he says, it's usually because the other person is feeling a little down or a little depressed or a little, maybe has an injury or maybe doesn't feel well today, something like this. And just a word or just a gesture. So then he turned that whole idea into a formal, you know, exercise that we do and people get all caught up in healing people. That's not what we're doing. If you want to fix a broken arm, you go to the doctor. He'll take care of that for you. What we're doing is we're unifying with this other person. We're connecting with them. We're loving them. We're caring about them through a gesture or a word or just a touch, or maybe like just silence. Okay.
Thank you, Sensei.
I think that's, yes.
Okay. I just would like to add some small point that we are in Russia slightly more lucky. We have 2 hours difference from Europe, and we have 8 in the morning currently.
Oh, congratulations. Not too bad. Okay,
Okay, thank
excellent. But even 8 o'clock, thank you for being here. Nice to see you. Okay, third group, please.
Good evening, Sensei.
Good evening.
Evening, everyone. Group 3 was Jan, Crystal, Tracy Sensei, Melly Sensei, and myself. Excuse me if I don't know your last names correctly. There was a question about the difference between knowing a bad apple and rejecting it without losing 1 point, and reacting to a conditioned response and a moral conditioned response and rejecting something. And in the first case, I assume you stay relaxed, and in the second case, I assume you contract, you get tense. But maybe those two situations can also coincide when you realize that there is a conditioned response. Could you speak about that, please?
Okay, so first of all, if you're in the supermarket and you're picking an apple to take home and eat tonight, just pick a good apple. Don't reject anything. Just pick the best one you can find. Okay, and if someone is, how did you say, if they're insulting you, or if something that spawns or sparks a reactive mechanism within you, and that means that you're rejecting their gesture to you because you don't like the way it sounds, you don't like the word they use, you take it as an insult. But what if you were to take it as like kyatsu? Like, for instance, when someone comes to give you a key test, I come straight for you and I give you a key test. That can be interpreted 2 ways. You can feel intimidated and like somebody is going to, like I'm going to test you and push on you and expose you for whatever degree of mind-body unification you have. Or you can see that I'm coming, this hand coming to you is to support you and to reveal to you how stable you are. Now, you have a choice there. We always have that choice. And what we don't always realize is that we also have that choice in daily life whenever anybody challenges us in any way. Okay? So it's not so much, you know, a comparison between the apple and the person. I mean, it makes sense to ask it that way because the person is always so much more difficult than the apple. But the difference is between plus life and minus. So choosing plus is sometimes the most difficult thing to do because everything inside of us wants to reject or hide from or get away from or fight with or, you know, come into do conflict with this other situation. Now, of course, you wouldn't do that with a rotten apple. You just ignore it, take the good one. But so maybe in some situations with a rotten person, you just ignore them and go somewhere else too. Maybe you just say, not today, if it's that bad. Or if there's, if sometimes you don't have that opportunity to just walk away. Maybe it's your boss, you know, or maybe someone in the office, or maybe it's some family member. So you have to sit down and keep one point. and listen carefully. You know, I gave you guys these key exercises that Tohei Suzuki Sensei gave me, like when you're in a group at a dinner or something, and somebody brings up something that you know everything about that subject. And they're talking like they know everything. And then somebody else says, oh yeah, that reminds me, I know something about it. And the other, and instead of reacting and saying, oh, wait a minute, I know, I'm the one that knows about it. Try not saying anything. That's the exercise. When somebody brings something up like that, when you think you're the expert or you know something about it, or you just want to be having an identity sharing with this other person, don't do nothing. Just listen carefully. And always you will be rewarded. I promise you, you reveal it, something is revealed to you. You notice something about yourself, a habit that you have, a way of reacting. Maybe it's to, if you're a man, it's to women, or if you're a woman, it's to men, or if you're, you know, if you're a what kind of person doesn't like homosexuals, a homophobe, you know, then maybe it's that, or maybe if you're a racist, it's somebody comes with that color or that shape of body, you don't like it, or maybe you're some sort of exercise freak, and if someone comes in there overweight, oh, you just can't deal with that person. This is very common. So this is the kind of conditioning that we have that drives us to be miserable instead of happy. That's what I have to say about that. I think it's very clear that we always have the choice to choose plus. We don't have to reject anything, really. Even if you have to walk away, you don't have to reject. You don't have to have the last word. You can just let it go. Okay, next one, please. Thank you,
Thank you,
Berta.
Sensei.
Is there another group?
So could we hear someone from group 4? That's Charlotte, iPhone, Sally, and Vitali. Sally?
I'll try to talk, Sensei. I don't think that we really came up with a question, but we had some very good discussions about matter and energy, and can the key really disappear? You know, if you die, is there no key ever? Does it come to
You
an
have
end?
to wait till you die to find that out. Don't
That's
worry
what
about
we came up
happens
with.
after you die.
Yeah.
And anyway, the Tohei Sensei makes it quite clear that the principle we're working with here never disappears, never becomes zero, but becomes one with the universe. So doesn't that seem to fit the dissolution of the body just perfectly?
Yeah.
If you want to speculate about it. If you really want to know, then you just have to hang out, and someday, I suppose, you may find out. Even then, you may not, right? We don't know. I think that, so this is, like I said, this is, on the one hand, it's very clear and very everyday, very common, very, 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 very understandable. This, because we understand the science of atoms, right? And molecules and cells, and you know, we understand that everything is made of the same stuff, but it's just a little bit differently put together, and so it manifests differently as wood or water or air or fire. All right, so that's easy to understand. So when we talk about ki that way, when Tohei Sensei says, well, it's an infinite gathering of infinitely small particles, we go, oh yeah, I get that, right? Everybody gets that. But when we're faced with the difference between that infinitely small particle. And the operative word there is not small, but infinite, infinitely small, infinitely large, small, infinitely inclusive, infinitely large. On the one hand, and this set of objects in the world, some are people, some are animals, some are plants, some are houses, some are parts of this or that or the other thing. When we're faced with these two things and told that they're the same, this can be very disconcerting for us because our brain, the logical mind, cannot. Well, let's say that cannot is the wrong word to use there. It's very, very challenging for the logical mind to deal with that. It's like a koan. You can only get it by experiencing it directly. That's why when we're flummoxed by something, the teacher always says, breathe more, sit more, meditate more. In other words, become more one with everything. And then the experience of that will show us. It's like, can you please tell me about love? Well, no, I can't. You have to love. You have to do it yourself. Even the simple thing that everybody always uses, the taste of sugar. I cannot share that with you. There's no way I can tell you what that is. You have to taste it. So we have to experience each aspect of this. When we say, if you are alive, ki is extending, first thing that hits is our conceptual mind, and we think about it. And then maybe you come to this class and I bring up all these different ideas about it, all pointing to something that is inexpressible. And I look at you and I say, please experience the inexpressible. So that's what happens in every Aikido class, basically. That's what we're doing. It is kind of like Pandora's box. That's what that's about. Because there are things, of course, that are waiting for us to understand that are a surprise. Let's just say they'll be a surprise. And everybody who's had a kind of a transformative experience, like you told me one time about what happened in that field where these people were coming to hurt you, and you just were able to be there, and it completely solved the situation. That's not the normal Sally Worcester, right?
Right.
Exactly right. So we've all had these small moments in our life, which I mean, small, unforgettable, but you know, at time-wise, maybe just a moment of experience in our life where the egg is cracked and we got a glimpse of what's there. Just imagine. Okay, so thank you, Sally.
Thank
And
you.
I think that's everybody.
Sensei, we have one more group. That's group
Oh,
5.
I'm
Christoph,
sorry.
Naomi, Lucky, and Rose, and Lynn.
Oh, good. I'm sorry. Yes, please.
Hello, Sensei.
Hello, Lucky.
So, for a little bit, we were talking about, I think Christoph brought up that he didn't quite know the difference between the ki we extend and the ki around us in the universe. So our question was, what is the difference between those two, if any? What is the difference between the ki surrounding us and the ki we extend.
Okay, thank you. Everything, the third principle of the universe is everything is constantly in a state of flux. He says, Tohei says, the universe is an infinite sphere with an infinite radius. And the universe is infinite gathering of infinitely small particles, and the universe is always changing, always in a state of flux. So he says infinite sphere with an infinite radius, don't get caught up in that, because of course it's infinite. So it has no shape or size. Infinite means just that. So he's only using sphere just to give us an idea. And so, but when he's saying that Kakudaiho, the universe is constantly expanding and filling itself, and Shuchuho, the infinite gathering of infinitely small particles, the universe is constantly infilling you, right? And then everything is always in this state of change. Nothing ever stops moving. So we have this thing called attention. So we can shift our attention to something, or just close our eyes and shift our attention to different subjects, or imagine different kinds of plants, or different people, or again, different ideas. Right? So whenever we shift our mind, our attention, we use our small mind, our attentive capacity to shift to something, to change. That is a fundamentally what we call extending ki. So for instance, when we're teaching a beginner to do unbendable arm, we tell them actually imagine a fire hose filled with water, don't we, shooting out across the room. So that's not actually what it's like, right? That's not actually what's happening. Because when you get more mature, then you realize that there's ki everywhere already. It's completely full, right? The universe is made of it. So where would it come from and where would it go to? So yes, everything is always changing, but it's evolving, right? And this evolution is repetitive. The principle is repetitive. Always growing, always shrinking, always breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in. Born, die. Healthy, ill. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And this movement is, as we were saying before, we always have a choice when we're engaged in this movement, whether it's plus or minus. So when Tohei Sensei says extend ki, he's often saying extend plus mind or take the plus way. So, or I would say when you having trouble with somebody, have a little empathy for them because you're having trouble because there's some conditioning, right? So extending ki means caring for them. Like I was talking to Lexi about with Kiatsu. It's caring about, it's loving. And that's, if you want to say extending from one person to another, that's the best way to understand it. And it is no different than experiencing the ki of the universe, experiencing love for everything. That's called gratitude, awakeness and aliveness and appreciation of everything that can be. This is the same, exactly the same, not different, not separate. But of course, for beginning Aikido, So they have to have some way to focus their mind, because the mind of the person coming into Aikido has no attentive capacity. It just jumps all over the place. So we give them some physical representation of loving. We call it unbendable arm or unraisable arm. You know, what do you know about unraisable arm? Don't think about your arm. It's the whole body is being lifted. So in other words, it's an invitation to include everything. So does this make sense? Who asked me this? Lucky. Lucky, how's that going for you?
Good.
You
Thank you. I think that answers my question. At least it gives me a lot to think about.
Right. Okay. Okay. Listen, thank you, everybody, so very much. It's so nice to see you. And you don't have to extend ki. Ki is already extending infinitely. From you, outward, from outward, inward, it's always in flux. It's always happening completely. We just have to tune into it. We just have to notice it. We just have to recognize it and enjoy it. Okay? Thank you very much. どうもありがとうございました。